Hey guys, I'm Props, and today I'm going to show you how I made my Shishkebab from Fallout 4 using some random recyclables, scraps, cardboard, and an LED strip. So the first thing I did was cut out the basic shape of the sword, including the hilt and the blade, and then I just glued a couple pieces of cardboard together of this basic shape just to build up the rough profile of this. I did glue in a wooden skewer in the middle of this just to hold everything together and to give it a little bit of strength so it didn't flop around. After all those pieces were glued together, I went through and glued on a piece of cardboard that I cut to the rough profile of the blade that had a little bit of excess on the edges of it, and I just glued this on and then crimped the edges together so that they kind of met up in the middle, and then I glued another piece on the other side, and then I glued those two edges together to create the edge of the blade. I was just going to carve away at the original blade that I had made, but I decided that it would probably look a little better just having the two opposing pieces of thin cardboard meet together. Plus it'd look a little more neater than if I had to fill in and sand the exposed corrugation lines that the other way would have left. After I had glued the other side of the blade on, I went through and glued a bottle cap on the pommel and then this little circular piece on the crossguard area just to give it a little bit more shape. I don't think this part is on the actual in-game prop, but I wanted it to be there since this is a katana and I wanted it to have that little crossguard. And then I went through and made this little trigger piece that the thing has. I ended up thinning it out so that it wasn't so thick because the original one is kind of like a propane handle, which are pretty thin. I actually have one laying around, but I just didn't end up using it. And I glued and screwed that in place just to get it to stay there. I also glued on a propane tank. This is a little bit smaller than the in-game one, but I just wanted to make it around this size. And I just made that out of a super glue accelerator bottle. I also glued on a little flame shooter piece, I don't know what the technical name is, and it's just an airbrush paint bottle with some cardboard to hold it onto the side. I also glued on a little tank piece that goes on the side of the handle, and this is just an eyedropper bottle with some cardboard over the top of it. And I also glued on the twisty part, like the hose handle on the side of it, which I just made out of a part from a piece of plumbing equipment. I'm not sure what it was, but it had this little 4 cross ring part thingy that looked a little bit like the part from the game, and so I just ended up using that and a bottle cap to hold it on. I did screw most of these down just because they're plastic and hot glue doesn't work so well when gluing them to other surfaces, so I just used a lot of that. I also glued on some tubing on the sides of the blade just to create that tubing that the Shishkebab has going up the side of it. I'm assuming this is what it uses to dispense the propane or whatever, and then that little ignition piece lights it up. This would actually be a fun thing to make in real life. I'm sure people have, but I was actually going to try to make some fluid dispensation thingy, like a smoke machine on this, but I didn't end up doing that. So I just used some tubing and stuff instead of actual metal tubing that you would use for that. After I had glued all that on, I went through and mixed up some spackling and went through and just spackled the edge of the blade and then some of the rougher areas just to help fill in some of the gaps and stuff so that it looked a little bit cleaner than it is right now, because it's kind of pretty seamy right now. Not that a lot of my older props didn't look like this, but I kind of want to try to get a lot more professional looking stuff. So I just use this spackle to fill in some of those gaps and cracks and stuff on this. The Shishkebab in-game is pretty rusted and stuff, and so I've kind of devised this new texture look just by stippling on some matte acrylic paint that dries pretty quickly, and then dusting it with some dirt and dust and standing stuff just to give it a little bit of a texture, which the prop has in-game. It kind of gives it that look that rust has normally, just creating that kind of corroded look. I forgot to record it, but I painted the blade of this a silver color, just using some Rust-Oleum silver paint. And then I also painted that little red propane tube with some red paint. To weather it, I'm just mixing up some brown paint, and so I'm starting off with a darker brown and just sponging this on all of those little rust patches that I made. And I just hit this over that, going pretty heavy with this since it is pretty weathered in game. And then I gradually mixed in a little bit more lighter brown paint and then a little more lighter brown until I got up to an orange color, and then I mixed in some orange, and then I went up to a yellow and just lightly highlighted all of the areas with some yellow paint just to create a nice lighter shade of rust in some areas. And overall I like how that turned out. I also did a few black washes over this, just mixing up some black paint with some water and rubbing it over this whole thing just to get some grime and stuff in all of the depths of it. I wrapped some leather from an old couch around the handle, and I just hot glued this onto it, and I tried to get that kind of Suba looking or katana looking handle wrap going. It wasn't super good, but you know, it is the thought that counts with this. I'm not a professional handle wrapper, so my thing didn't turn out quite as good as I was hoping, but it looks decent enough from afar. I forgot to record most of it, but I made this little light up blade for it just out of some clear packing foam, and then I put some LEDs in it that can change colors, and then I just stippled some red and yellow and orange paint over that just to give it some color when the blade shut off. It's pretty simple. I just glued two pieces together and then hollowed it out just using an X-Acto knife, and then I just used a bunch of hot glue to glue the blade onto the sword. I did end up using some clear CA glue to attach it in some points just because this foam doesn't like glue at all, because it kind of melts it a little bit. Yeah, it turned out pretty good. I really like how it ended up, though there is a few just bright spots in the hilt itself, or the blade itself. So I might do an in-depth video on doing something like this in the future, if you guys are interested in seeing that. Overall, I'm super pleased with how this turned out. I really like kind of the weathering that it has, and the overall shape of this is also pretty decent. The flame blade turned out pretty good. Like I said, there's a few bright spots in it, but it doesn't look too bad in person. It's just on camera you can really see those. The handle wrap's decent too, and overall I think this is a pretty cool thing. I wore this with my power armor when I went to a con a little while ago, though I'm now repairing the power armor because it kind of fell apart a little. But yeah, it's a pretty fun thing to have, and everyone enjoys a little Flaming Katana. If you guys don't mind checking out my Patreon, they get early access to my videos, as well as some free files and some other cool stuff. So if you guys want to check that out, that would be great. They currently pay for all my black paint, so that's awesome. If you guys don't mind liking and subscribing, that would be awesome. Currently at 500 subs, so thank you guys for that. Let me know what you guys want me to make, and I'll try to make it. This was a suggested build from one of the Fallout Reddits that I'm in, and so I ended up making it for the costume, and so yeah, that's awesome. See you guys next vid. Happy crafting, and bye.